Hey guys, how you doing? Luna here with a new video. Welcome back to the channel. Today I am really excited because we're talking about one of my favorite and one of the most important albums of all time. Usually when I do this sort of videos, videos where I'm talking about a specific album is really easy because they're albums that I know pretty well. So talking about the music itself and what I like about the music and what I don't like about the music is really simple. But when it comes to talking about a specific thing, influence, innovation, and the way that the album affected the music industry back then is really complicated because first of all, I was born in 2001, so we're talking about an album released in 1983 and the impact it had in that year is really difficult because I wasn't around at the time, and explaining it to you guys who probably weren't around at the time either, it's even more complicated. So these videos are not easy to make. I usually have to do a lot of research, listen to the album a lot of times, and a lot of albums released around the same time. But honestly, if there's an album and a band that's worth the effort of doing all this research and doing a video like this, it has to be New Order with Power, Corruption, and Lies. Now this wasn't really the first album we got from New Order. There's Movement released in 1981, only a year after Ian's passing, which is really weird considering that he was the lead member of the band. What would think that the band, if they wanted to come back, they would do so after taking a really long break trying to figure out what they wanted to do with their music. However, they came out with Movement, which is a solid album. It's a really good album. I definitely recommend for you guys to listen to it because I think it's kind of underrated for it being a little bit too similar or sometimes a bit too different from Joy Division's original style. As you know, the only difference between New Order and Joy Division is the lead singer. Everything else from the bass to the drums to the guitar is played by the exact same musicians. So obviously you're going to find similarities in the music. However, Movement was a little bit too similar and sometimes a little bit too different. It was a bit tacky at some points. The production wasn't really all that great either. So even though it's a solid album and it has good songwriting and the performance is, kind of decent too, I don't really find that album to be like the real New Order, the fully fledged idea of the band. It felt like the band was transitioning away from Joy Division and the legacy that an album like Closer left, using a lot of synths in the music, but we'll get to that in a minute. Pretty much what I'm trying to say is that Power, Corruption, and Lies feels like the actual debut record, the first musical statement the band ever did. And the reason for that is because it managed to capture the same feeling of a Joy Division album, the rhythmic drumming, the amazing guitar work, and the excellent and sort of danceable bass work that you can find in a Joy Division album, you can also find here. However, in this album, it feels like the band totally embraced their pop influences and decided to go for it. It's a way more uplifting albums from the the atmosphere of the record to the lyrics to even the performances. You have one of the greatest album openers of all time with Age of Consent. The bass work in this song is amazing. The production is excellent. It truly shows right off the bat how much better this album is in terms of quality and production value. Then you have songs like The Village and Ultraviolence that fully embrace pop music and are not scared to provide a more uplifting nature, being a total contrast to the work that Joy Division was doing at the time that was more depressing and full of despair. This albums and most of New Order's discography is really uplifting and beautiful, which many people argue that the band was rejecting everything that Joy Division was by making such uplifting and happy music, but actually I think it's totally the opposite. It's the band having a new beginning, embracing everything that Joy Division was and building something new from it, which is the beauty of this album for the most part. The album has one of the greatest songs of all time as the lead single. It may not be in the album, depending on the version of the album you have, it is on the record, but in the original cut of the album, this song is not included, but Blue Monday is definitely a part of the album's canon and is one of the greatest songs of all time, one of the most important ones too, introducing synth pop in a totally different, more fun, but also interesting way. And actually, the band used this song and dismantled it to build 506, which is a multi-phased pop banger that feels totally different from the rest of the record, yet it manages to include itself in the album without sacrificing the cohesiveness of the record, And then to close the album, you have one of the most inspiring, beautiful, but also kind of sad songs the New Order has to offer with Leave Me Alone. The guitar work on this song is incredible. I love it. I love the drums too. I love the performance. I love the lyrics. Everything about this song is just perfect. If it weren't for Blue Monday, this would definitely be my favorite New Order song. And overall, everything about this record record feels so precise and sophisticated and elegant that it's hard not to recognize the great achievement this album is. But it's not only a good album and that's it. It's actually a really important record because it managed to build a bridge between two different styles of music. Joy Division was basically a response to the rebellious nature of the punk movement. Now they wanted to use punk to build a different thing, not only expressing anger, but also sadness and numbness. The way they did it was making music that you could dance to, but at the same time the lyrics and the performance led you in a totally different direction, building something spectacular, which is known as post-punk music. Unknown Pleasures, for example, is one of the greatest examples of this post-punk movement at its finest. And you can also find albums from David Bowie, you can find albums from Iggy Pop like The Idiot, to, dive deeper into this genre. However, the band decided to go for something a little bit more interesting and weird when they added synths and digital drumming and echoed vocals onto the mix with the album Closer, which in my opinion is the best Joy Division album. However, the song and the formula overall was still a little bit too disturbing for other genres to kind of adopt the sound. That's until New Order came out with Power, Corruption, and Lies and built an album that used the same formula you can find on, a song from the mainstream at the time, using synths and digital sounds to craft the top 10 Billboard songs and built something more interesting from it. An album that is as interesting as any psychedelic or post-punk or metal album you can find out there. They showed that the problem wasn't really the synths, the problem was the people using the synths. The problem wasn't really the computers, the problem was the way that people use the computers. And they managed to reignite a flame in this new wave genre that gave birth to some of the best albums from the 80s, 90s, and even, the amazing and groundbreaking nature of this album echoes still today, 40 years after the album was released. That's how you know an album was important, and that's how you know a band really left his mark on music. It's almost like Autotune and how people used to think that, it was just a tool for mediocre people to make mediocre music that could go in the top 10s and on the radio. But nowadays, people use Autotune to make super interesting things with her voice and put it on an album, as we can see in the new wave genre and the bedroom pop genre. So many interesting albums that are so much better because of Autotune. That's really similar to what New Order did with this record and, with the synths and digital sounds. Post-punk was some sort of rejection from everything that pop music or, mainstream music was at the time. So for the remaining members of one of the most interesting and one of the best post-punk bands of all time to use synths and to use a formula that's used to craft that mainstream music that they originally rejected with their music, even if they don't like to be called mainstream music rejectors themselves, that's pretty much what they were, or that's how people perceive them. So for them to use the same elements and the same formula that their music was rejected was crazy, but somehow they managed to create one of the most interesting, greatest, and most tight albums that music has to offer. And in doing so, they found their sound and they managed to keep making some incredible records like Technique in 1989 or Music Complete in 2015, which in my opinion is a really underrated album. You should go ahead and check that out if you like New Order's music. Overall, man, this album is incredible, from the music to the story to the performance to the way it changed music at the time. Everything about this record is amazing, and if there was ever any doubt, yes, this album is definitely a 10. That'll be it for today's video, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed. If you did, go ahead and leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any other videos that I upload. Please do remember that this is only my personal opinion, so if you have your own, go ahead and leave it down below in the comments. Joy Division and New Order is a really interesting conversation topic, so I definitely want you guys to go ahead and leave your comments so we can have a small debate in the comment section, especially if you're around, if you were around at that time. I know that a lot of people that watch my videos are in their 50s or 40s, and they're, people that were around when these albums were being released and know the context of, what was happening in the world when those albums were being released. So I definitely would like your input in the comment section. I'm always really excited to see your comments and see the stories that you have to tell, your personal experiences with this album. And obviously, if you disagree with me on anything, then you can go ahead and leave it down below too, and I'll make sure to, have a small debate with you in the comment section. So what are you waiting for? With that being said, once again, I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope that I can see you guys soon with a new video. But until then, bye.